So it's great to kind of see the next generation come up and start taking the ministries in the parish. So very good. They're nice reading and nice responsorial psalm. So hopefully some even take it, because you're among friends anyway. So it doesn't matter. This is a great place to try it out and to speak, because we'll all just love the fact that you're doing it. So all the young people. So try it anyway. It won't kill you. That's for sure. And at most we'll all just feel just warm in our hearts when we see you do it. So anyway, today, when I was studying for the priesthood, we had to do what was called CPE. CPE is called Clinical Pastoral Education. What you do is you go to the hospital, you have to work there, and then you go visit patients. And then what happens is you have to write about how you had a conversation with the person in the hospital. And then we'd all get back together with my class and we would discuss it. We write what's called the verbatim, which means as best as I could, what did I talk about with this person? And then they would sit down and look at it and criticize it and tell me what I did right and tell me what I did wrong, so that I'd get a better way of talking to people when they're in the hospital bed, right? It's a way to kind of help me in pastoral ministry. So anyway, there's one person I was visiting, and the person was clearly a Christian, no question. Had Christian get well cards, right? And one of them was even from his pastor, because he told me that was from his pastor in Kennebunk. He was a Protestant anyway, but we had to visit everybody as part of this education. So anyway, he had a brain tumor, and he was really, really sad, very sad, because he was thinking, and this is what I remember his words saying, they could put man on the moon, but they can't cure my tumor in my head, right? And I was like, wow, So I then said these words. So how do you think God fits into all of this? Because he suffered like that. So I wrote that in my verbatim, and then I went to these groups of people that were Protestants, Catholics, and some were Unitarian Universalists, meaning they were sort of believed everything. But anyway, so I had this conversation with them, and we were talking, and it comes to that line where I said, how do you think God kind of fits into all of this, because obviously he knows he's dying and there's no cure. And the Protestant group, as well as especially the Unitarians, they criticized me terribly for asking that question. And I was like, what are you talking about? Here I am, a chaplain. I'm going into a room. There's a Christian, obviously very practicing. The pastor writes him a get well card. And yet, this was their criticism. You should not bring up God until they bring it up, because it looks like you're imposing your faith on them. And that was the idea, and that's been a way, I think, American ideas, and for young people when you grow up, this idea is that, you know what, faith is private, you don't impose it on anybody, it's your personal faith, and everybody just keeps it quiet, and that's usually how we live in this world. And you probably will experience that when you try to maybe even think, and I have to admit, as one who went to, public school system and all of that, there was a sense that, yeah, you're right, I don't bring these things up at all, because I wait until the other people bring them up and then I say something. That's the way I think Americans are formed, because religion is a very private thing. However, I bring that up because in today's reading, both readings speaking about the faith. Did that on purpose, by the way, two speaking abouts. All right, the faith, the gospel and the first reading speak about testifying to the faith, to bring God up in discussions as often as you can. I think we have the attitude it's a private religion, and so we don't bring it up in public self, and keep it to yourself. And yet Peter and the apostles in that first reading were told, stop speaking about God. Don't talk about God anymore. We forbid you. And then Peter says, I obey God, not men. I must obey God rather than men. And then he begins to preach about God, talk about God again. And I think one of the reasons we have a problem in our culture is because we don't talk about God often, and bring it up right away. And parents don't bring it up right away with their children. Children don't bring it up right away with one another. It's like, what do you think God thinks about this? Let's, bringing, and the gospel says that, Jesus was saying that those who are above speak about those things. Those who are earthly only speak about earthly things. They testify. So those who are above testify to godly things. And I know the hesitancy, even as us adults have, in sort of engaging the world, but speaking about the faith, because we all have been told very clearly that you keep that to yourself. And I think that if you read the Gospels and you read all the martyrs and you read all the people of the faith, they did not. They didn't. That's not what the faith is about. So may we have that courage, as Peter did in the Gospel, as Jesus calls us to speak about the things and testify to the things that are above. It may cost us, but that's what the faith is about.